Hi everyone, and welcome to GMAC Club's MBA Spotlight. It's part of their MBA fair. There are 2 more days to the fair, and today we are joined by 3 panelists to talk about a career in consulting. But before we dive into that, let me just introduce myself. My name is Ken. I'm from London Business School MBA batch of 23. Prior to the MBA, I was a consultant at Ernst & Young before becoming the market lead for Philippines at Facebook, or now we call it Meta. And since the start of the MBA, I started my own company, a1mbaconsultant.com. That is where we help candidates get into the top business schools, as well as if you're thinking of scoring that scholarship, that is where we'll help you on that as well. But we are not here to talk about that kind of consulting today. We're here to talk about strategy consulting and a career in it. So joined by me today, we have Suhas, Luis, and Orsi, all of them from McKinsey. So maybe we'll start off with a round of self-introduction, beginning with Luis, and we'll kick off from there. So Luis, over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Ken. Hi, everyone. My name is Luis Polanco. I am from Caracas, Venezuela. And now I'm an MBA candidate at London Business School, class of 2023. So with Ken here in London. I studied industrial engineering back home in Venezuela. After graduating, I worked for a small financial consultant firm before joining McKinsey. And then I spent 3 years in their Panama office before coming to my MBA in London. In terms of topics that I did at McKinsey, I was part of the banking practice, the financial institutions group, and I was digital certified as well. So I did a lot of digital projects within banking, both in analytics, in terms of agile, and everything from strategy to implementation. So from the early stage, like digital transformation strategies, to development of machine learning models, and like implementation and monitoring of new products in banks and in insurance companies all through Latin America and the Caribbean. I also did a lot of, pharma, telecom, agro-industrial products, public sector, and from my office, we also serve mining, oil and gas, so retail, a lot of different industries. With that, I mean to say that if you're looking for variety, definitely consulting will also offer you that. And now I'm in London doing my MBA, having a great time, and hoping to go back to the firm in a couple of years.
Brilliant. Talk about versatility, Luis. Fantastic introduction. Now I'll pass on the mic over to Orsi. Orsi, if you would kindly unmute yourself and say hi.
Yes, hi. Sorry, I will go on and off mute because 2 children in the background are going to be screaming, which is not everyone else's business. I'm Orsi Georgia. I'm an associate partner in McKinsey's London office, though right at the moment I'm in California. I have an MBA from Michigan Ross. I was class of 2013 there, and I joined McKinsey as a summer intern in the New York office. Then I transferred to Silicon Valley, where I spent 3.5 years, and then I've been in London for the last 5 years. I am one of the European leaders of the marketing and sales practice, and the work I do is mostly around the intersection of data, digital, and marketing and sales. So basically, how do you take everything that happened over the last 10-15 years in data and digital and help companies grow.
Perfect. Thank you so much, RC. So you have 2 kids, a partner at McKinsey, as well as taking a panel on a weekday evening. Talk about.
Thank you, associate partner for now, but we'll change that soon.
I hope so, you, RC, definitely for sure. So thank you very much for that. And last but not least, we have Suhas on the call as well. Suhas, would you like to say hi?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you very much for having all of us on this panel. Very excited to meet everyone and kind of share our thoughts on our journey so far. By way of background, originally from India, did my undergraduate and master's studies in mechanical engineering, undergraduate from New Delhi, followed by a master's in mechanical engineering from McGill in Canada. Thereafter, started working as an aviation-focused engineer for a company that got acquired by another big company back in 2018 for a good amount of 4.5-5 years. And then went to Kellogg to pursue my MBA with focus on finance and operations, graduating in 2018. Was a great experience. I can absolutely talk at length similar to what RC or what Luis would be kind of going through during their MBAs. But happy to kind of just focus on consulting right now. I come in with a very strong background in operations, supply chain, end-to-end transformations, and that kind of became my main focus areas of attention during my consulting in the last 3 years. I've moved from one company to another. I've actually moved across multiple consulting companies in the past couple of years, so I can absolutely talk about the differences as well as how the different companies position themselves within a very strong and competitive consulting industry space. Very happy to be here.
Perfect. Thank you so much, panelists. Very happy to have you guys here as well. I love the diversity of backgrounds that we have covered here today. I think we're going to receive a lot of questions from the audience. So let's get started, shall we? So this particular panel is broken up in 3 different sections. Definitely for the people listening in, they're very interested in coming to the B School, and that's why they're listening to the GMAT Club MBA Fair. So we're going to start off with what are some of the skill sets they can build even before entering the B School. And then we'll move on to recruiting, your experiences in business school, essentially, and how it has prepared you for your eventual roles in McKinsey. Finally, we'll get into some of the personal life advice for anyone who is looking to build a successful career as you have in the top consulting firms in the world. So let's get started. So for the first questions, and this is open to all panelists, what sort of skill sets do MBB look out for, and how do I demonstrate? For example, anyone demonstrate if they're not from a consulting background? How do they demonstrate in their day-to-day work? And this is open to any one of you guys.
I can start. So I think there are ultimately, honestly, the answer to this question is really quite straightforward, right? What are consulting firms looking for? They are looking for people who are going to be able to successfully deliver their projects. And what does that take? It takes primarily, I think, 2 big areas of capabilities. One is around problem solving, and another one is around interpersonal capabilities, right? So problem solving, I don't think I need to explain this to anyone who is considering going to business school and going into consulting, right? Everyone's mind right around this time is probably freaking out about case interviews and how hard those are, etc. But I think what you need to keep in mind is that, what any consulting company is going to be looking for is just for you to be able to have a structured way of thinking through a problem. There's no magic really in case interviews. And then the interpersonal skills, similarly, right? In consulting, what do? You work with teams, you work with clients. So what the consulting companies are looking for is people who have demonstrated that they are able to work with others successfully on teams and work out challenges and differences in opinions. So I think those are the 2 big areas that you're looking to demonstrate in any interview that you're going to go through.
I could go next, and kind of building on what RC just mentioned. I think we can all consider. I'm sure all of us are very scared of case interviews, which are pretty much a staple for consulting interviews, right? But I think if there's one thing I've learned when it comes to case interviews is to treat any case as a problem to solve, right? Whenever we consultants are brought in by a client, we are literally called in as a company doctor, where the companies may or may not be doing that well, and they have brought us in to help them figure out, okay, what is going on, what can we do to help them to kind of turn everything around, right? So effectively, a case interview or a case is actually a problem structured across 2 different parameters. Number 1 is how do you actually analyze, number 1, and number 2 is how do you present that analysis? Because just doing analysis is not enough. You need to know how to actually cater the final set of deliverables to your audience. That, I think, those 2 are tremendously important things that interviewers are actually looking for in prospective consultants, along with whatever RC had mentioned.
Yeah, just as a quick add, agreeing with everything that has been said, the problem-solving part, to expand a bit, I think it boils down to 2 sort of different parts of problem-solving. There's a conceptual side of it and the more analytical. conceptual meaning is like how to frame the problem or the situation that you're facing, how to like understand it in a very organized way. Was talking to the structure that Suhas was talking about. It's very much about like your train of thought and how you structure a problem. And then the analytical part is more about like, okay, what analysis do we carry out? What the more quantitative, like Excel modeling, and that's part of the equation of like solving the problem once you really understand what it is. And then fully agree with has been said about the soft skills regarding interpersonal and communication skills. At the end of the day, we work with people, not just our clients, but also internally. You'll spend a lot of time with your team. So definitely teamwork is a very important skill. And you should be able to sort of speak to these skills when you are being interviewed and have like specific examples for each one.
Incredible. I'm sensing a common theme here, problem solving as well as interpersonal skills, how you're able to communicate in a certain structure, break down big problems and solve them systematically. I think this is starting to come through. I guess we will address a lot of these themes as we go through the questions. So I'll quickly move on to the second one and also borrowing some of the questions that we're getting in from the audience. The second is, how will a business school prepare you for an MBB interview? And is it the only way in?
I think any one of us can take that.
Yeah. I mean, this is the last one. I'll go first on though. So I think, I can only talk about my experience at Michigan, but I'm really sure that Suhas and Luis will share these views. I think, consulting is one of the more common recruiting tracks in any business school, and therefore actually once you enter, there's a support system that is really well prepared to help you get through the interviews. One, there's sort of career counseling, but also at Ross, there's a consulting club that meets on a weekly basis, and you're basically really from sort of week 2 of your MBA experience walked through the entire process of applying to an MBB. You are being taught about your elevator pitch and how to behave when these companies come on campus, and what are the things that you want to emphasize, then case interviews and more case interviews and then and practice also practice on sort of the stories that help you display your interpersonal skills and experiences in a way that really speak to those capabilities that Luis and Suhas mentioned. So there's actually a really structured process that business schools are taking you through, both second years who have gone through that same experience as well as career counselors. So it's really actually one of the more straightforward recruiting experiences on campus. And it's certainly not the only way in, but it is the most structured way in. And in some sense, and easiest is tough because it's not easy in any way, but it is very well structured, and so therefore you know exactly what you're signing up for and what you're going to do and what you need to do to give yourself the best shot. And honestly, that's all you can ask for, because sometimes it just comes down to luck of the draw.
Yeah, I'm maybe a little bit less qualified to answer the question because I did my recruiting. Said during the MBA, at least that, for example, LBS, a full 40% of our class goes to consulting every given year to MBB. So something around like 100 people out of my 500-person class will go to McKinsey, Bain, and BCG. And it's mainly because it's a very structured path to go to consulting. During the MBA, you're like it's the best opportunity to pivot into the field, and companies, consulting firms will have a specific like person recruiting for your MBA who will be there on campus or who will like be emailing you and contacting you. So it's definitely like a great opportunity to break into the industry. It's definitely still very competitive, and a lot of people want to go into consulting. So it's very much a very competitive process, and you still face the very high bar that everybody faces. But the fact that it's a very structured process makes a lot of those interactions for recruiting happen a lot more easily during the MBA.
Yeah, totally. I think Luis and Ars, you have completely hit the nail on the head. I'd rather kind of take a cue from what Luis mentioned on the structured. Actually, both of them mentioned about the structured nature of recruiting based out of an MBA school. I think as for anyone recruiting for MBB or any of the more competitive roles, I think having a structured approach kind of eases your tension and anxiety to an extent, because you actually know when are the networking events kind of scheduled, all the way to when are you supposed to have your interviews and when the final results should be out. So that's for the on-campus recruiting for MBA, any MBA school. For off-campus recruiting, I think the element or the biggest element that adds to people's anxiety is the unstructured nature, because the recruiting cycles can go on for one from 1 week all the way to a few months. So how do you keep yourself motivated for that entire duration, I think, is probably the biggest issue that I've seen people face, and which kind of gets alleviated to a very large extent if you're going through a very structured recruiting process out of an MBA school.
Perfect. I love what you guys just mentioned, especially Suhas on your last point. I guess the long nature of the structured recruiting, I think it's a way of weeding out people who don't have the determination to become the consultant, essentially. So let me just summarize before we move on, because there's some important points to go through. How business school actually prepares you. If you notice, to those who are listening in, not even one of the panelists mentioned is about academics, but rather is how the career center is able to support you, the network that you have to make, how you prepare for your elevator pitch, how you prepare for your case interview. Those are the things that are important. So it's the cohort, your peers that are going through the case interviews together. Those are the elements, the key elements that is actually preparing you for a career into consulting and breaking into the MBB, essentially. So thank you very much, panelists. Fantastic answers. I need to quickly move on to the third question. As we all know, most of you maybe even have done it, a pre-MBA internship. So the next question is something relating to that, leading up to B school. So for example, I'll leave my jobs 3 months before the MBA starts. What are some of the things that a person can do to prepare themselves for an MBB interview?
I can take the lead on this one. Again, I did my recruiting pre-MBA, so I didn't have a chance to do an internship at McKinsey. But something that I did do is that I joined McKinsey through one of their sort of recruitment programs for young professionals. So if there's anyone here who doesn't have a lot of professional experience, doesn't feel they're ready to do their MBA yet, in Latin America, in Africa, in certain places of Asia, McKinsey has sort of these young professional programs, which is a great way to go in. And it's sort of like an internship, but it's a full-time position where you get to sort of learn the ropes of consulting and build your consultant toolkit while on the job. I would also add that in terms of like specifically preparing for the case interview, it's all about practice, I would say. I was the leader for Latin America's like recruitment candidate mentorship for the lower tenure positions, so meaning business analyst generally. I hosted the WebEx a lot of times and was very involved in the process. And what I always used to tell you my candidates was that it's all about practice, both for the personal interview part or the personal experience telling stories, and for the case interview. Both of those things are skills that you can develop, and that as much as you practice them in real life with real people, it's like you're going to get much better at it, because it's a skill that you sort of a muscle that you build. So meaning make sure you know all of your stories very well for the personal part of the interview. Make sure that you have a lot of different stories and that you can like tell them in a very organized method, follow the frameworks like the CAR method or the STAR method. And then for the case interview part, practice many cases with classmates, with friends that you have in consulting, with your case coach that you're assigned online. Try to do as many case interview practice tests as you can, or like case interview preps, because it really does make a difference for your preparation for the interview.
Thank you, Luis.
I could go next. Kind of echoing the same or similar sentiments from Luis. I personally didn't actually take any breaks, because I wanted to kind of just relax or not do anything before actually drinking straight from the fire hose. But what I've seen is people actually, to Luis's point, work on their stories, right? And so that's one part of interpersonal on the problem solving skills, what you can do is you can start like thinking, take an example in your personal lives, and before you start your MBA, like just start thinking in a structured manner. Okay, I'm looking at this problem. How would I like think about 3 ways that I'll actually help solve this problem for my own self? That level of structured thinking would actually help you in crafting stronger stories as well. So you can do that if you are not able to get into an internship. But Luis's point, I think in North America there's a program by the name Emerging Scholars that that actually I had applied to back in the day before I started at Kellogg, which is a really good gateway of actually getting into McKinsey and understanding what would a McKinsey consultant would do on a day-to-day basis. Because that to me is a good understanding of whether you will be a good fit or whether the company would be a good fit for you on the other end of the spectrum.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I guess there are some common themes that's emerging as well. Be as close to the consulting day-to-day life as possible. Find different ways. Take the initiative to demonstrate to your recruiter and to your future hiring managers that you do enjoy this kind of lifestyle and you have the skill sets that is very beneficial for the team. So in the interest of time, we're going to move really quickly into the second segment of our panel, which is the recruiting portion. So we're going to be a little bit more targeted here. So as we know, the structured recruiting, we're talking already during the MBA. So structured recruiting happens very quickly. The moment you start your MBA in your first semester, you probably have to start preparing for that already. So how does one maximize their time leading up to the summer internship recruiting? And this question is open to any of the panelists.
I can take the lead on this one. So effectively, what like everything is structured, right? So for the first few months, as soon as you start in an MBA program, you kind of the first month usually is taken by orientation sessions, and right after that, you'll start having those networking events where different consulting companies will be coming on campus, providing an understanding of what that company does and how is that company different from other consulting companies. Number one. Number two, as soon as those events are done, actual in-person networking events start taking place where you'll be called into multiple lunch and learns, multiple in-office events. For example, for Kellogg, McKinsey Chicago would actually host a lunch and learn or a wine and dine program to actually invite students who are planning to come into the world of consulting to actually talk to consultants to understand their perspective. Number two. And number three, I think to Luis's point, starting December, consulting clubs, similar to what Ursi had mentioned, start creating your interview panel groups where you are actually paired up with a second year student who becomes your mentor throughout the interview process and kind of guides you through, okay, how do you need to think about your structured problem solving or case interviews, as well as how do you structure your stories. So that would be until the month of December, early Jan. Mid to end of Jan is when first rounds and final rounds interviews happen, and by end of Jan you literally kind of get to know what would be the end results, whether you have one or multiple admits from different companies.
Yeah, I think I just take this for whatever it's worth. Don't do too much before you start. You're gonna arrive on campus, it's gonna be a whirlwind. You're gonna suddenly, you're gonna be bombarded with opportunities. I think the most important thing that I would do before starting an MBA is just really think about what you want to do after. Because at some point in October, I almost went into recruiting for investment banking. It's just, you're caught up in all the emotions and that sounds fun. It's not. Well, for me, it wouldn't have been, but I was like this close. So I think the best thing you can do is really just think about, okay, what do I want to do with these 2 years? What is it that I want to get out of it? And what is it that I want these 2 years to prepare me for career-wise, whether that's your immediate next step or actually much further down the line. So that's the one thing I would do, and then maybe practice your elevator pitch. But you will do so much case coaching. You will do this process. You have no idea. It is so structured. Everyone has done it for like decades. So you really don't need to prepare. Maybe again beyond the elevator pitch, and just like being sure about what you want to do and why. And for the record, I want to do it for 2 years because I don't know what to do and I want to try out a lot of things, is a perfectly viable answer for consulting.
Perfect. Thank you, Suhas. Thank you, RC. So I guess the two main points is follow the structured program, build your network, go for the lunch and learn, for example, and then taking it from RC, don't overdo it. Bring your authentic self, have fun with the MBA, and make sure that consulting is what you want to do and not get caught by peer pressure and just apply because all your friends are applying. So be true to yourself, guys. So we're going to move on to the next question, and this one is targeted to Suhas, considering that you have been with more than one top consulting firm. The applicants will actually like to know, how does the interview process compare from one firm to the other? So if you could share some insider information, I think they will appreciate it a lot.
I don't know how much of this would be inside information given the vast amount of resources we all have at our disposal, right? I think let me just take a very high level view of consulting interview process. I think typically you have 2 or 3 at max rounds of interviews, with first round typically having 2 or 3 case interviews and behavioral/fit interviews, where as well as final, and then you move on to or get selected to go into the final rounds, which is typically 3 to 5 interviews, depending on which firm you're interviewing for. I would actually give a big shout out to McKinsey, because McKinsey's interview process was so structured that it actually alleviated a lot of my anxiety as to like, okay, what should I expect? While some of the other company interviews, literally, I was supposed to have a case interview, ended up being all behavioral. So that kind of threw me off. So on that front, I think understanding what are the differences between specific companies' interview process actually should be the first thing. Like, to Osh's point, when you try to figure out why do you want to go into consulting, look at where that intersection is between your why and what the different consulting companies are doing. And then figure out, okay, what do I then need to do to get into company X, company Y, company C? So that's my kind of overall overarching take. At the end of the day, it's all case interview. You need to know your stories. You need to know your casing analytics. You need to show that you're a powerhouse at the end of the day, and that they can put you in front of the clients without any issue.
Perfect. Love the answer. It's all about fit there. Sorry, Louis, you're about to say something.
Yeah, as a quick comment, building on top of what Suha said, there's something that could be interesting to explore is when you're researching the company, the specific firm that you want to apply to, make sure you understand sort of what types of questions they ask and in the case interview, and what the format and structure is. And by that, I mean, certain firms, for example, specialize in a specific industry. So you would expect to get a case from that industry. So you should be prepared, obviously, if you're applying to a specific industry. Or certain firms will do market sizing questions, which are very specific types of questions. And then one big difference is the candidate-led versus interviewer-led case interviews. In some firms, for example, BCG and Bain, the interviewee, meaning the candidate, meaning you, will have to sort of discover the case little by little and try to ask for the answers, or try to uncover what's the answer to the case. And you will have to request for information which the interviewer will not share immediately. On the other side of the spectrum, the McKinsey interviews is more interviewer-led, where the interviewer will share exhibits and will lead the conversation. And this is all, like, there's a lot of content online. There's hundreds of different firms that will help you prepare for consulting, but definitely do make sure to understand how they interview specifically.
Brilliant. Love the answers, Suhas, Louis. Maybe just a quick one for the applicant hopefuls. There's a lot of talk about finding the company and a good fit. How should an individual do their research? Should they talk to someone, reach out to LinkedIn, or just on a company website? Is the best source of information. What do you think?
I mean, there will be, all of you are planning to go to leading MBA programs. There will be a million consultants on campus pretty much the second you step foot there. So just honestly talk to the people. I'm, obviously I'm now 8 years at McKinsey, a bit shocking to me even. So obviously I I really enjoy working here, but I have no doubts that many of our competitors have very similar strength and culture and whatnot. So I think for me it was mostly who are the people that I can most see myself working with.
Perfect. Thank you so much, panelists. I'll quickly move on to the last questions, which is gathered from the floor actually. So, do recruiters in MBB look up for candidates with a certain type of profile or background? Is there something that the recruiters prefer, or is it an open playing field?
I think I can take the lead on this one. It depends on the type of role you're applying to. For the generalist roles, it's very varied. And I really mean that. At McKinsey, at least, we used to have people from all walks of life and from very different backgrounds. So yeah, maybe Suhas and I are engineers, but in my office of PANA, we were watching, wasn't a particularly large one. We had people who were doctors before, people who were accountants, people who were in finance, people who had done very different things. And you learn about people who used to be in the military and are now at McKinsey, people who did very, very different things in their prior life. So it's definitely not a specific background they look for. If you're applying for a very specific position, meaning like a specific practice, or if you are applying for a digital role or for like an agile implementation role, then definitely they will be looking for certain kinds of like certifications or certain kinds of like experience in the industry. So maybe programming experience if you're applying to McKinsey Quantum Black, which is our digital and analytics group. So yeah, definitely like, if you're applying for a specific position, get familiar with what they are looking for in a candidate, so you can sort of review if you build or if you have those skills, or you can build them in the meantime.
Thank you, Luis. And it goes back to what the panelists has mentioned earlier. So it's all about the fit, right? It's how your skill set matches the role that they're looking for. So thank you very much. We're going to move really quickly into the last segment of the panel before we open the floor and take some questions from to the people listening in. So we are now moving on to the general career advice. So this is going to play something close to heart, guys. So for the first question, what do you wish you knew before starting your career as a consultant?
That's a very good question. I think I wish I had realized just how aware everyone is of how little you initially bring to the table. Because I think we all arrived at McKinsey and we went through this very structured, but like also very detailed and not remotely easy process. And therefore, you arrive with this idea in your mind that you have to have the answer to all the questions. And I mean, I'm not sure about you guys, but I personally freaked myself out over this for at least the first 6 months to a year of my life at McKinsey. Matter of fact is everyone has been in your shoes. Everyone who is joining McKinsey will have been on their first day, on their first study, in their first 6 months at some point. And they are very well aware that when they are staffing you to their project, what they are doing is helping you develop your skills. So just, don't put too much pressure on yourselves. And I think I would have had a much nicer first year if I had just appreciated that, what you're learning here is the ability to do more of what you've shown in your interviews, the ability to break down problems, the ability to understand even how far McKinsey expertise goes. You can literally name a random subject and someone will know about it. You don't have to have the answers. That's what I wish I'd known in my first year.
And I think I could go next. Building upon what Arsi just mentioned, I think I've been completely blown away by a tremendous focus on coaching by everyone. Like as an experienced hire coming into McKinsey, it's very easy for you to feel overwhelmed as to Arsi's point. Okay, why do I not know about this, right? So instead of taking that to your ego, you kind of seek out people who can help you. both formally and informally. And at McKinsey, I've seen everyone, as soon as you reach out, they'll be more than happy to kind of pick up the phone, talk to you for 15, 20 minutes about any topic whatsoever, be it a client study related or just personal things that you want to discuss. So I think that was something that I did not expect. Frankly, I expected everyone to be like so busy to not actually have time for these chats.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I'll move on to the next question. And this is probably something that RC will probably have a lot of insight. So, what makes a consultant stay in MBB for multiple years, and what are some of the reasons that some might choose to leave?
Well, thank you for calling out my age, Ken. That's lovely. Look, I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think most people really come for 2 years. The number of times I had these discussions with partners, senior partners, who said, I just came and I thought I'm going to make manager and then I'll leave. I think what really makes a lot of people stay is sort of, it's very cliche, but it's finding a home, both in terms of the people you work with and then in terms of the topic that you are working on. I came in and I did what is called the random walk, which is like I went from industry to industry, from function to function. As a matter of fact, during my MBA, the one area that I thought I'd never work in was marketing, and here I am, one of the leaders of our marketing and sales practice. So you really don't need to have any idea upfront what you want to do. But I think what really makes people stay is, people are absolutely amazing. Any number of you who will decide to join consulting, you're going to come in and you're going to get the fantastic coaching that Sue has mentioned, and I think it's just all the areas that you will learn about during your MBA in terms of leadership and people leadership and what that means, it just really comes to life. And so that's a really nice culture to be a part of. And then we have like the 22-year-olds like Luis come in and then blow away everyone. And I just wish I had your drive and your knowledge when I was your age. And then the other thing, honestly, is just do you find a topic that you are excited about and that sort of lends itself for taking from client to client. For me, I now have that, right? I'm super excited about doing a lot of digital marketing work and building out these teams. But then I think a lot of people leave because they feel that what they have learned, they want to put into sort of a longer term perspective. And sort of see it play out for 2 years, 4 years, 10 years. So I think it's really sort of a mindset of how much do you want to sort of kickstart something, and then you're willing to let it go a bit. Though as you go up, obviously you let go of your clients less and less often. But then the other question is how do you sort of find that area relatively early on.
Thank you so much, RC. Luis, Suhas, anything to add about your observations? Or
yeah, I only did 3 years, so RC has a better perspective, but I fully agree. Everything that has been said, the people, for me, was the number one thing about working in consulting, and I'm sure it's the same at any of the big consulting firms. It's incredible how generous people are, to Suhas's point, and how much they will focus on coaching. And just to mention a different thing, something I was also surprised by is the fact that you sort of like never stop learning and you never stop growing. You think that after a couple of years there, you already like know the ropes and you sort of like have a good grasp on what to do. And actually, it's never like that. You're almost like never comfortable because you're always learning and you're always like being pushed to sort of continue growing and continue like pushing the edges of your comfort zone. And that's, for me at least, it's something that was very inspiring. It's very you never have a chance to be bored at all. It's always like a growth experience. So yeah, it's something that I found very personally motivating.
Amazing. And it goes back to what RCS mentioned as well, and Suhas, about how steep the learning curve is. So for people with the growth mindset and want to continuously develop themselves, I think consulting is definitely a career for them. I know we are almost at the end of time, so I'm going to take 3 quick fire questions from the floor. And then we will quickly move on to the final question, where you give your 1-sentence advice to people who are trying to penetrate into the consulting industry. All right. So for the very first question, it's going to be an easy one. Anyone can take this. Does GMAT score matter in the recruiting process for the MBB?
No. I think every business school just tells you to leave it off unless you're above, what was it, 700, 720? So it doesn't matter if you have a high GMAT score. That's helpful, or a high GPA from a reputable undergrad. But no one will be excluded based on any GMAT score.
Perfect.
Or so I heard.
I see nodding of heads there, so there's no conflicting. In that case, I'll quickly move on to the next one. Certain schools preferred over others when it comes to MBA recruiting as associates for the MBB.
I could take this one. I think consulting industry is so vast that you cannot really answer with a straight up yes or a no for this. It's just so varied across the board that top 20, top 25 MBA schools as well easily place, not easily, but rather like competitively place candidates as associates post MBA and within the consulting industry. So at the end of the day, again, you just need to figure out whether consulting would be a good fit and then take the next steps.
Perfect. And this one, we'll go through all panelists. Can you give an example, maybe your most memorable and most memorable project in your consulting experience, just to give the people listening in a flavor of what does MBB consultants do?
Okay, I can start. For me, my favorite project was working with a bank in Panama, developing an automated machine learning model that analyzed clients in order to pre-approve them for credit cards. This is something that is very common in the US and in developed markets, but that hadn't been done, or isn't done very commonly in Latin America. And we're the first bank doing it in Panama. So we came into the bank, we sort of helped them develop the model, like actually code the model itself. In the same time, we coached all of their analytics team in order to be able to do this on their own. So we did both developing the model and training the team. And at the end, we managed to increase their number of commercial leads by 400%. So they went from 1x to 4.3x in a space of 6 months. It was an amazing experience. We really delivered a lot of impact. And in the same time, we had a great client experience. So my favorite project at the firm.
I can go. My projects these days tend to be usually quite similar to each other. I do a lot of this work where we basically go to a company, do a quick growth strategy, primarily looking at digital and data-driven growth levers, and then set up what we call a war room, which basically means that we bring in different digital marketing specialists, data scientists, e-commerce specialists, and have them sit side by side, each of them with one client, and basically just run for 10, 12, 16, however many weeks, and basically improve how they do digital marketing, how they do e-commerce, how they use data in their day-to-day operations. And I'm super excited about this type of work because it, I think, combines sort of the kind of blue sky thinking of consulting that a lot of people come into consulting for, where you really come in and try to understand how a company could grow. But it combines it with then mitigating one of the main reasons why people leave, which is you want to see how you actually are driving impact versus just leave behind a PowerPoint. And so in these settings, we are actually there. We have said that by doing this, that, this, and this, you can deliver, I don't know, 10 million pounds of impact, but we're not leaving. we are then sitting next to the client and helping them deliver that over a number of months, which to me is sort of the best of both worlds.
And very similar to what Aussie just mentioned, my favorite client study till now has been kind of where I was able to show both the problem solving skills as well as the interpersonal skills, and then kind of one place. So here I was working in a team to help a very large last mile delivery player figure out, okay, what are we going to do during COVID, because all the supply chains got a massive hit, as well as everything was kind of into an unknown territory. So my team and I kind of came in trying to understand what could we do to actually alleviate some of these concerns of theirs, as well as help them figure out, okay, what would they look like, or what would their operations look like post COVID. So effectively, we analyzed the entire landscape for them, not just within North America, but rather globally, and help them figure out, okay, what would be their post-COVID new normal look like for their entire operation, the supply chain, effectively providing them almost like a, a 25% increase in their existing capacity without a single dollar spent on capex. So it just kind of goes to show how we as consultants can actually drive a lot of impact for our clients when we are very much focused on achieving the best possible scenario for them.
Amazing answer. Amazing answer, guys. You're making me feel like applying for a role in consulting as well. Yeah, so I guess you've heard it from the panelists. It's all about driving results and creating value for the companies and the clients that you work with. Those are the things that are closest to a consultant's heart. So we're going to end off with one question. It's if you could give advice to the people listening in one sentence, and they are hoping to penetrate into the consulting industry, what would that be?
I could take the lead on this, literally by saying two words: be curious. I think as consultants, you can be a great consultant if you're curious about everything, any and everything out there. Be open to asking questions. Be open to kind of be pushed back on your thinking, because I think those are pretty much the biggest two things that you'll be bringing in as a consultant on any client study on any given day.
Yeah. For me,
I second. Sorry.
Go ahead, Archie, please. Go ahead.
Thank you. No, I was just going to say I second that, and I think really just read up on some of the things Suhas particularly said today around growth mindset. And if you see yourself as someone who enjoys, standing up and challenging someone who has been 20 years doing working on that topic, and if you can see yourself working 10 years on a topic and then being challenged by a 21-year-old, then consulting is right for you. Otherwise, maybe just reconsider.
Perfect. From my side, I think it's two things: prepare and enjoy the ride. Make sure if you really want to penetrate the industry, put in the work of investigating the best firms and how to fit in, or how you fit into each one. Make sure that you meet a lot of people, you read everything they have online, you follow them very closely, and then enjoy the ride. Consulting is a career path that is incredible for some people, and if you're the right type of person, then you sort of enjoy this career. There's no other place like consulting, I think. So there's a lot of stuff to do, but it's all about making sure that you, as Orshi was saying earlier, make your own consulting track and enjoy it.
Wonderful answer, guys. So let me just allow me to summarize. The first one is be curious. Second one, it's having a growth mindset. Be bold, challenge the status quo, and be prepared to be challenged as well. And the last one, it's come prepared. It's all about the fit, right? And just enjoy and be true to yourself, be authentic, enjoy the ride, essentially. So those are the three key advice from our panelists. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank the panelists for this wonderful discussion. Once again, going back to what they've mentioned, how the business school has prepared them for a career in consulting. So if you're interested to get into a top MBA program, be sure to follow GMAC Club's website. There are 2 more days to the MBA fair. And if you guys are looking for an MBA consultant, be sure to check out a1mbaconsultant.com. My name is Ken. Please join me in giving a round of applause to our 3 panelists tonight. So thank you for joining today's session. Let's have more amazing sessions tomorrow. Thank you and take care. Good night.